Hello, parents, and welcome to our book study. I want to apologize for this book study taking as long as it did to get produced. Transitioning out of my school office into my home office, it's taken a lot longer than I anticipated, and also having to learn a lot about video production and editing took a little bit longer than I anticipated as well. But here we are, and we're ready to go. And so let's go ahead and learn about our book. The book is called Intentional Parenting. Autopilot is for Planes, and it's published in 2013 by Thomas Nelson Incorporated. A few disclaimers before we begin. My assumption is that you have purchased or will purchase an electronic copy or print copy of the book as we move through this book study. Second thing is, I don't know any of the authors. I'm not trying to sell or endorse any of the products that they are selling, and I'm not trying to endorse or support their ministry, which is Daystar Ministries in Tennessee. The third thing is, please understand, parents, this book does not come from a center of judgment. This book study just comes from a place of my own self discovery, analysis, and self evaluation of myself as a parent and my own desire to be a better parent to my children. Let's go ahead and meet the authors. And so the first author is Sissy Goff. And Sissy Goff has a master's in education. She is a licensed professional counselor, and she's also a mental health service provider. David Thomas is a licensed master social worker, and Melissa Trevathan has a master's of religious education. Their ministry is Daystar Counseling Ministries in Nashville, Tennessee. You can learn more about their ministry at raisingboysandgirls.com. The introduction of the book begins with an anecdote. I believe it's a couple that comes into the office, and I think it was a daughter that they were struggling with. The mother says, we've talks about we've been trying counseling, but she really felt like they were outsourcing their parenting responsibilities. And they've gotten to a place where they felt, well, maybe this has something to do with us, and maybe we could be better parents. Please don't feel that I'm anti counseling because that's not the case. I think that having someone help you through the journey of parenting can be very helpful. Chapter one of the book begins with, talking about being an intentional parent. And another anecdote, the boy has come back from college after his first semester of being away. It may have actually been he came home for Thanksgiving break. And so he tells an interesting, the boy goes on to kind of tell the story that his mom was, hey, don't forget about the milk in the fridge. Don't drink because it's dangerous. And the dad, on the other hand, is just crying. He's just bawling. And the book puts those two responses or parenting responses, both I think are reasonable. Both I can understand from the standpoint of being a parent of what I think that moment, would be like when I drop off, my own kids at college. Shoot, even when I take them to summer camp. But I think that there's a comparison being made. One where you have a parent who's parenting out of fear, and that was the example kind of given by the mom. Um, you know, don't drink, it's dangerous. And then you've got the dad who really isn't credited with saying anything to the boy that's helpful or useful or to consider other than I love you, and he's crying. The line from the book that stands out in the beginning of chapter one the most to me was, when we parent out of fear, our kids never get the best of us or even what they really need from us. Parenting out of fear is a reactive form of parenting. The book goes on to give us an invitation, and it thinks of the book where it suggests the book is an invitation for parents to become more proactive, to be more thoughtful, to be more strategic, to make wiser decisions, to be more intentional in the way that we interact with our kids. So, if we think about it, we can parent with love over fear or fear over love. And so that's kind of a thing for us to really realize. And the truth is that decision can be made about a lot of things and how we respond to things. The thing that we have to understand is this: our relationship with our kids is meant to be challenging because it's inside of that relationship with our children that we will become better people, then we can have a closer relationship with Christ. We have to understand we always have options. We always have decisions to make when there's a moment that's challenging. We have to acknowledge and understand that we are going to make mistakes. But the good news is God can redeem the mistakes we make in parenting. Being an intentional parent indicates a resiliency. It means we know that we're going to make mistakes, but we're willing to give it another try and we're going to try to handle things differently from the last time. I think it's really important that when we know that we make a mistake with our kids, if we mishandled a situation, maybe we lost our temper and we just own the mistake and we say something along the lines of, hey, I just want you to know that today I didn't handle that well. And I know it hurts your feelings and you're disappointed, but I love you and I promise I'm going to try to be better. Can you imagine how much that would mean to a child? Now, granted, the response is going to be vastly different depending on the age of your kids. If you have a teenager or a preteen, they're probably not going to say anything to you. And if you have, of course, somebody who's young, then they're going to go ahead and give you an amazing hug. So we have to kind of reconsider our purpose. Ezekiel 20:22 goes on to tell us a time when God was angry with the Israelites. Here's the verse. But I withheld my hand and acted for the sake of my name, that it should not be profaned in the sight of the nations, in whose sight I had brought them out. You see, God was angry with the Israelites, but he held his temper because of who he was. So his name would not be profane in the eyes of other nations. And an important lesson for us: withhold your anger. I was talking with a parent, and one of my parents kind of said something that really stuck with me and said basically, hey, when you lose your temper, you lose. With kids, you lose, period. And I think that's so accurate. Being an intentional parent simply means we are growing towards responding more out of who I am or who God made me to be rather than responding out of how I feel. That's profound. And that's a very difficult challenge. But what an incredibly different way to think about our role as parents. The book goes on to say, why did you decide to become a parent? I don't know about you, but this question found me sitting silent for an uncomfortable amount of time. I felt like a high quality answer should immediately jump from my mind, but it did not. And the great news is the people that were asked in the book didn't have really great answers either. The most common answers were, I never really thought about it. It seemed like the next natural step. I wanted to be a mom or a dad. It felt like the right thing to do. I just knew it was time. What parent in marriage would do to me? That's a question I never considered. I never thought about how those two things would change me in terms of what being a parent would do for me, the joy it would bring me. Parenting is a challenge. Parenting will take us to the ends of ourselves. Parenting forces us to cry out for help. Intentional parenting is parenting while leaning into God for wisdom and strength. We aren't designed to do this on our own. We need God. We need to prepare for disruption. And that's the thing is our lives, I don't remember my life before children. My life is completely different. And I'm grateful for that. Being a parent is transformational. Our lives are different from that point after. We should see our children as gifts from God. And I'm sure all of us feel like that. Not necessarily all the time. In Psalm 27:13, David reminds us, I'm certain that I will see the Lord's goodness in the land of the living. And the point he's making is it's not all in the afterlife. The goodness and the great things that God has for us when we go to heaven, those things are going to be amazing. But God pours so many blessings into our lives right here, and our children certainly are gifts from God. The book goes on to talk about parenting can be a challenge. There's a quote from Dan Allender: there is no relationship on earth in which we are called to be more noble and to sacrifice more deeply than with our own children. And so emotions that are stirred up inside of parents by children, these were listed: angry, entitled, hateful, spiteful, shame. Those are some really strong emotions. The book talks about being an opportunity for parents to become students. And these are two lines that stood out to me. If we are willing to consider that God designed parenting more for our own sanctification and transformation than to shape our children's lives, we open ourselves up to movement, growth, and maturity. It also says, if we consider that God designed parenting as a place where men and women could come to ask hard questions, engage deep heartache, and find renewed hope, then there is much room for maturity of heart. I'm going to stop there in chapter 1, and let me kind of explain why. The book then goes into a series of questions for you to answer, for you to do your own self-analysis. There's questions that you can give to your children. And I feel like those questions are innately personal. Get a copy of the book, get an electronic copy or a print copy, read through chapter 1 and 2, and take the time with chapter 1, and just know that the questions inside of the book are pretty challenging. Give it an honest shot. I think you'll be impressed with the answers you get from your children. And I hope that this book study can mean something to everyone if it can really challenge us to be better and to improve our relationship with kids so we can ultimately have a better relationship with Christ. Well, how great is that? All right. Well, I will see y'all next time. I'll see you soon.